Now, it's not easy to best the first part of our program, but we're going to give it a try. As you've all been told numerous times, this is a pretty special year. It's the centennial for the American Legion and the 75th anniversary of Massachusetts Boys State, one of the most competitive and progressive of its kind in the nation. It took a lot of visionaries, most of whom you'll never meet, to get this program where it is. One of the most noteworthy is Admiral Ted LeClair. Admiral LeClair is the Deputy Commander of the U.S. Navy's 7th Fleet, our nation's largest. Ted grew up in Scituate and attended Boys State in 1986. He went on to Villanova to earn a bachelor's degree in liberal arts, minored in business on Navy ROTC scholarship. In later years, he went on to get a master's degree at the Harvard Kennedy School of Government with concentrations in national security and presidential decision-making. Later still, a second master's in strategic studies at the U.S. Army War College. Never one to stop learning, he also holds advanced and executive certifications from the Naval Postgraduate School, National Defense University, the Business School at the University of North Carolina, and is a graduate with distinction of the Joint Forces Staff College. I hope you're seeing a theme between these two great men. Yet again, Ted's biography from his professional life is just too long for me to accurately convey to you his very many contributions and achievements. From the highlight reel, I can tell you Ted has operational experience in the Atlantic, Pacific, and Indian Oceans, as well as the Mediterranean Sea and Arabian Gulf. He's run for public office here in Massachusetts, I think twice. He was mobilized twice to serve in Iraq and Kuwait. He's a former member of the Secretary of the Navy's National Navy Reserve Policy Board and held various assignments at the U.S. Combined Forces Command Korea and United Nations Command Korea. To put Ted's leadership in perspective, his chain of command puts him more or less at the apex of one of the most impressive and largest of continuously forward deployed fleets in the world. In the air, some 300 aircraft. On the surface of the ocean, maybe some 60, 70 ships. Under the surface, America's silent but mighty nuclear submarine fleet. All in all, maybe some 40,000 Navy and Marine Corps personnel. And my guess is there are probably a lot of classified assets that we can't know about. Having known Ted most of my life, I know a lot of things that don't make his official bio sketch. If my memory is correct, he was one of the elite, a Navy SEAL candidate back in the day. The training is so harsh that it's not uncommon for SEAL candidates to miss an opportunity to complete their training due to injury. Ted is one of 2 men I know who got a leg torn up on a beach run while training to be a Navy SEAL. Now, when you work to achieve that level of greatness, moments outside of your control like that can feel like an anvil coming down on you. But they also give you a moment to look really deep inside and see who you are. When you have hard moments in life or a time when things don't go quite according to your perfect plan because fate had other ideas, think about a guy like Ted LeClair. Not only did he find his place, he certainly didn't settle. He simply found a different path, and now helps to lead one of the most powerful armadas in the history of naval warfare. Closer to home, Ted was not only a blue shirt for a number of years, he was our chairman before Mark Avis. Ted helped to modernize Boys State and brought us here to Stonehill College. When Trent and I first moved to Bryan, Texas, I stopped in to pay Ted and his beautiful family a visit in Austin. It's about 2 hours away. I remember Ted and his kids were all sick as hell, and still, he was the most gracious of hosts. When our visit concluded, he pulled me aside at the front door and said, "Look, if you ever have business in Austin and just don't feel like you can or care to manage the drive back to Bryan College Station, know you are always welcome here. We want you to always feel like this is your home." I've known him long enough and well enough to know that he meant it. And when I made a really big ask, the one that brought him here, Ted didn't hesitate. Secretary of the Navy turned out was happy to let one of his most valued officers fly out of the Pacific to the far side of the world and speak with all of you tonight. That's dedication. Citizens of Boys State, I give you one of this program's favorite sons, Rear Admiral Theodore P.S. LeClair.
All right. Okay. Sit down. Wasting valuable time. Round of applause for the band. Awesome job. I don't have many regrets, but not playing an instrument was one of them. When I was 15, I was too cool to carry a thing around, and huge mistake in my life. You ever hear of Billy Joel? Yeah. He dated some of the hottest women alive, and he played the piano. So you guys are smarter than I was. The color guard, you guys are awesome too. Good job. You guys got to hear probably one of the best speakers I've ever heard in my life last night, Jake Comer. And I don't think this summer, anywhere in the country, there will be two former American Legion national commanders at Boise State, but there are at Massachusetts. And Paul Morin and Jake Comer are two great Americans, two great. In your lifetime, you'll be lucky to meet two men as great as these two guys who have served their country, that one in Korea, and then continue to serve. They traveled to every state in the country and every territory, and I want you guys to give those guys a round of applause for who they are. All right, and the next one's real important to me. One of the great travesties in American history is how we've treated Vietnam veterans. Not anymore, but it was. It's a huge stain in American life. If you get a chance, study the Vietnam War. There's a great series on PBS by Ken Burns and Lynn Novick. It's 10 episodes. You better have your tissues with you because it's intensely emotional and personal. We lost over 55,000 Americans in that war. It was a tragedy. Two books that I recommend you read, one by Carl Melantis called Matterhorn. Took him 30 years to write it. Left Oxford to write the book on his experience as a Marine in Vietnam. The other one is called Dereliction of Duty by the recent National Security Advisor to the President. And he talks about the dereliction of the duty of officers like me to speak truth to power. And they didn't during the Vietnam War. So anytime I tell every crowd I'm in front of, it's a personal mission of mine, when you meet a Vietnam veteran, you do not say thank you for your service. What you say to him or her is welcome home. If the Vietnam veterans in the room could please stand up. Welcome home. Okay, so I'm going to go quickly, but I'd be remiss if I didn't say, Mr. Chairman, Mark, thank you very much for having me. John, everybody, the blue shirters in the room, I love you guys. I really do. You are my brother of another mother, each and every one of you. And you be here and the service that you give is amazing. And to the kids here, I know it's probably hard for you to believe or just imagine. I can picture sitting in those seats 33 years ago. I can feel it. I can remember back to how I got here, to Mr. Shan, who's my guidance counselor, who we just buried last year. He got me into Boise State because he cared about me. Someone helped you get here. The only thing I ask of you when you leave here, well, two things. One is you go back and you find those people and you thank them. The teacher, the Legionnaire, the cop in your town or city, somebody who got you here, thank them. The second thing I want you to do is I want you to recruit more kids to come here. I don't care which camp you're in, what town you live in. We need to have more kids have the experience of Boise State. And this is unlike most things in life. We have plenty of money to bring kids here. It's just getting the kids here. So each and every one of you should go home and recruit a couple kids, even if it's the kids behind you. Because you getting selected to come here is a great achievement. You should be incredibly proud of yourself that you're sitting here right now. And it tells me two things. You've done a lot of the right things to this point, and you're on the right track. And people have noticed it, and they've recognized you. And it gives you a lot of confidence. You heard Brian talk about that. And the confidence you get is an important part of how you develop as a human being and as a leader. But there are lots of kids back in your hometown that don't have the confidence you have yet. Where's Alex, big kid that I was talking to? Okay, they don't have your confidence. They don't have your ability to articulate themselves the way you do. I want all of you to go back, and I want you to be those leaders for your final year in high school, the leaders in your high school that encourage kids to develop their confidence and to grow. So that's what I ask of you. Second, John did a great job, and introductions really are half-truths. You hear all the great stuff, Harvard this and Villanova and all this other crap. But what you don't hear about are all what I call the bruises, the battles, and the beatings that I took in that process. All the failure. I have failed more than you guys can imagine. And they've haunted me. They've been difficult. They've been challenges. I'm human just like everybody else, and probably more human in that I was a slow starter. It took a lot for me to get to where I wanted to go. And we're going to talk about that as we go along. But man, I am just so proud of you, and I am so excited about the opportunity to talk to you because you are the future of our country. And I'll tell you, and you should know this, if you probably heard it already, a lot of people don't expect you to be able to deliver. A lot of people are questioning your ability to answer the call and deal with the tough challenges our country have to face. And having watched what I watched tonight, I think you're going to deliver, no question in my mind. But you have some tough challenges to face, and they are not going to be handed to you where, hey, here's the easy answer, and we're going to talk about those. Tonight I want to talk about a calling to serve, some lessons learned from my own journey, and some insights into the challenges I think you're going to face. Military people have chosen to serve this nation through service in the armed forces. The key word here is service. We serve in the Army, Air Force, Marine Corps, Coast Guard, or Navy. We do not work for them. It would be an injustice to refer to this as work. Our individual reasons for our service are varied. Our individual reasons, but collectively, we the people saw the need for our common defense. We serve the people by taking an oath that starts with I, Ted LeClair, do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. That is why I wear this uniform, to support the Constitution that protects our freedoms and rights that Brian talked about. And we do it best by helping to preserve the peace by preparing for war. The people of this nation need to have confidence that we do not promote war, that we do not advocate for war, but war is in fact my business. As we have shown for nearly 2/3 of my 28 years in uniform, and as Brian pointed out, all of your young lives, this country has been at war. Our nation was founded by George Washington and thousands of men who, like the Roman general Cincinnatus, left their homes and farms to fight for freedom. This tradition carries on today. In preparing for tonight, I cannot help but be reminded of a speech by a former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, an amazing man named General John Vesey. Look him up. He gave many years ago in Newport, in fact, not far from here, where he recounted a marvelous dialogue that Plato relates in the second book of the Republic. Glaucon and Socrates are talking about the attributes of the armed forces of the day, which Plato called the guardians of the city. At one point in the dialogue, Socrates says, "Nothing can be more important than that. The work of the guardians should be well done." Hence, nothing is more important than the challenges and exciting journey that lay ahead for all of you. As exciting as the journey will be, you will face significant challenges, individually and collectively. You will be tested, to quote the Captain Marco Ramius, as your fathers and their forefathers before them. Tonight, I want to give you a gift, at least I hope it's a gift, and it's some of the lessons I came by the hard way. I will call them LeClair's lessons learned. Number one, master thyself. Brian already pointed this out, but I want to add to it. Per Plato, this will be the noblest and greatest victories of your lives. What do I mean, master thyself? Learn who you are as fast as you can, and learn how to articulate that to others. Are you a morning or an evening person? When is better time to work out? How much sleep do you need? Another book you need to read, Why We Sleep. The data says we need 8 hours of sleep to function. But it's metabolic function, it's brain function, it's cognitive development in your brain and your neural pathways. If you think you can go to bed at 11 or 12 o'clock at night and get up at 7 the next day and function, you can't. Less than 5% of people can. And if you have that gift, then go for it. But most people can't. You need 8 hours of sleep to get your rest. And don't bitch to your parents about telling you to go to bed. Are you better studying with a group or alone? How do you handle change? Do you always need a plan? How long does it take to make decisions? Do you have an issue with substance abuse or self-abuse? Are you patient, dour, positive, talk too much, too little, introverted, extroverted? There are no right answers, guys, to these questions. The only right answer is you know what you are, and you know how to best function with it. As long as it works for you and those around you, that's what matters. Look to books, to history, to parents, to friends, to priests, to rabbis, to coaches, to blue shirters, to anyone that can assist you in mastering yourself. Lesson number 2, spend time developing your interpersonal skills. The art of communicating in person is something you must learn to develop. Handshakes, looking someone in the eye, handwritten letters, public speaking, working with a team, asking someone out on a date, face-to-face that's not through a text message. We're going to come back to that. Those are more vital than ever. A mentor told me he knew life. 2 points I want to make. A mentor told me he knew when life sunk to an all-time low, when to call his family to family dinner, he texted them all. The sad part about it is they were all in the house, but they were all in private rooms alone. A friend of my wife's shuts off the house Wi-Fi to get everybody's attention. She'll be yelling to somebody, hey, what do you... And as soon as she turns the Wi-Fi off, everyone's like, hey, what the hell? One of the attributes probably not discussed enough about Tom Brady is his presence in the huddle. I have firsthand knowledge that he communicates through his body language and his words to get 11 men to march down the field. It's not his arm, it's his leadership and its ability to communicate to people. A friend of mine, his name won't be mentioned tonight, he was the platoon commander who took the SEALs into combat to get bin Laden. He had developed that team. Technology helped, but you must be careful that it doesn't hurt you in the process. We'll come back to that. Lesson 3, be true to thine own self. This one may annoy your parents or someone who has your life planned out for you. Steve Jobs wrote, your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. Don't be trapped by dogma, which is living with the results of other people's thinking. Don't let the noise of others' opinions drown out your inner voice. And most important, have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. Live your life. Don't live it for someone else. Lesson 4, make friends and nurture those friendships. The author of the Peanuts cartoon, Charles Schulz, had a neat life philosophy. The point is, none of us remember the headliners of yesterday. There are no second-rate achievers. They are the best in their fields, but the applause dies, the awards tarnish, achievements are forgotten, accolades and certificates are buried with their owners. Friends last forever. Shakespeare on friendship wrote, I count myself nothing else, so happy as in a soul remembering my good friends. Lessons 5 or 6 are compliments of John Wooden, the famous UCLA basketball coach and teacher. If you're not making mistakes, then you're not doing anything. He was positive that a doer makes mistakes. I have made my share and still do. Life rewards action, and with action comes failure and misfortune. Yesterday, Gary Woodland won the U.S. Open. He didn't win it by not making mistakes. In 7 previous golf tournaments, he was in the final pairing. He lost all 7. But yesterday, he was good enough. He kept coming. Wooden also espoused things turn out best for the people who make the best out of the way things turn out. John mentioned that some of the challenges I had in SEAL training, but just give you a quick list of the failures. When I was at Boys State, I ran for Boys Nation and I lost. I remember listening to a guy named Brief and another dude named F, and he just stood up and yelled F at every speech, and he got elected, and I lost. But he's not up here tonight, is he? I was rejected at every single college I applied to. I was waitlisted at Villanova. I still remember it to this day. Every time I meet somebody in the Navy and I ask them, did you go to the Naval Academy? And they're like, yep. I'm like, what company are you in? And it's a Naval Academy thing. Who wants to go to the Naval Academy, by the way? All right, we need you. Let's go. Come on. But anyhow, don't do this. So what company are you in? Oh, I was in 6th. I'm like, oh, man, that's a great company. And they're like, what company were you in? Oh, I didn't go to the Naval Academy. No, you'll get it when you join the Navy. I lost 2 Senate races. I mean, the list could go on and go on and go on. I failed at every single turn. You're not going to always get yes. You're not always going to get A. It's your ability to deal with that failure and realize it doesn't define you, okay? Now, there are some failures that it's hard to recover from. My classmate at Villanova, graduated #1 in my class, he's in prison right now. It's a failure that's pretty hard to recover from. Hopefully he will. God bless him. But just, there are some things, okay? It's hard to come back from. Lessons number 7, financial debt is a killer. After the words love and thank you, probably the 2 most important words for you to know are compounding interest. If you have the choice, you laugh, but how many of you are saving? I try to get my 13-year-old kid to put $50 in the bank, and he gets 100 from his grandfather. I tell him, you put 50 in, I'll double it. And I'm like fighting with him over it because he wants to buy sneakers. And I'm like, dude, you're killing me. And I try to teach him about compounding interest. So, if you have the choice to graduate from Villanova with a ton of debt or UMass Lowell with 0 debt, go 0 debt. The book Nicomachean Ethics is the same at both places. So, doesn't matter. Lesson 8, you will need Lincoln's will. Good for all of us that Lincoln didn't know the word quit. He lost 8 elections before being elected president. Personally, he struggled with depression, and collectively we had to face the issue of slavery and how to eradicate this stain on the United States while simultaneously preserving it. During the Civil War, when Abraham Lincoln woke up in the morning, at best he had a 25% approval rating. He was hated equally by the North and the South, but for different reasons. During 3 days at Gettysburg, more than 10,000 troops were killed. How many of you have been to Gettysburg? Raise your hand. All right, you all need to go. If you haven't been, you got to go home and say, Mom and Dad, we're going to Gettysburg. And more than 10,000 troops were killed, another 30,000 wounded, making it the bloodiest 3 days in American history. Lincoln believed so deeply in the cause that the Civil War continued for another 18 months after Gettysburg was over. If you deeply believe in something, then go for it. Our beliefs drive our behaviors and will produce our results, so what do you believe in? Lesson 9, serve others, and in doing so, don't limit yourself. Keep your options open and your mind open to new ideas, new thinking, and new options. Don't give in to cynicism. Lesson 10, a better measure of success. I didn't have a good one when I was your age. At your age, when I was here at Boise State hearing someone went to Harvard or graduated #1 in their class, to me that was a measure of success that I put way too much credence in. I was too impressed by the wrong titles and the balance of someone's bank account. Money is needed but not required. The title husband, father, and son are more important than vice president, and shipmate is far better than admiral. I have found a better measure of success are who are your friends and who loves you. Some generations are asked more than others. Some have a greater burden, others have less. But one way or the other, we will all be called and all be tested. The question is how we handle that test. Just 3 things for you to chew on this week and beyond. Test number 1 that I think you guys are going to face, and you already probably are. If you haven't, I encourage you to look at this book. There are 5 factors driving a decline in boys. Dr. Leonard Sachs, the author of an acclaimed book called Boys Adrift. How many of you have ever heard of Boys Adrift? Wow, 3 or 4. Okay. Well, here I go. And look, this isn't criticism. This is data from a PhD and an MD. I think you should have it. You should know about it as you make your decisions. As Brian said, not stumbling into your choices, but being informed. So here's what they say about this book. Sachs makes the argument that video games, teaching methods, prescription drugs, endocrine disruptors, and devaluation of masculinity are causing a decline in boys from kindergarten to college, claiming you are less resilient and less ambitious than a mere 20 years ago. Video games, the study suggests that some of the most popular video games are disengaging boys from real-world pursuits, and the profound changes in the way children are educated have had the unintended consequence of turning many boys off school Overuse of medication for ADHD may be causing irreversible damage to the motivational centers in boys' brains. Environmental estrogens from plastic bottles and food sources may be lowering your testosterone levels, making their bones more brittle and throwing the endocrine systems out of whack. And shifts in popular culture have transformed the role models of manhood. 40 years ago, we had a TV show called Fathers Know Best. Today, you have The Simpsons. Now, technology is great, guys, but it's not free. Nothing's free. I learned that when I was a kid. I said, oh, this is free. And a friend of mine, an older gentleman, a mentor, said, there's no free in life. There's a choice and a consequence to everything. So all joking aside, the price of technology, there's a price. Screen time, FaceTime, chat time, texting, snapping, whatever else you do with those devices, it is starting to exhibit a negative effect on our productivity and success. The data is more than just disturbing, it is alarming. I know 2 officers in the Navy whose two sons have committed suicide, and both of them had a massive addiction to gaming and that kind of stuff. It affected their ability to communicate, to talk to people, and it really changed their neural pathways completely. We have a huge problem in the military of when we're at sea where people are on their phones and the devices, they download all this stuff, and instead of being in their pit getting 8 hours of sleep so they can go stand a good watch, they sit there and they watch videos all night long. We don't let kids do cocaine or drink vodka at school, and we need to be careful about what we let you do with those machines and those devices. And it goes for me too. This isn't just you. But these are choices that you have to make, okay? And are those things really helping you or are they hurting you? So that is a test that you guys have to face as you bring on more technology. And those are just those devices. There'll be a raging debate about driverless cars, about robots, about jobs. All that stuff is going to come during your lifetime. The second thing that you need to really deal with is our country's debt. It must be dealt with. I'm embarrassed to say that my generation has failed to solve this problem. In 1986, I remember it like it was yesterday, Senator John Kerry was here at Boise State speaking, and he talked to us about the debt problems. And they're almost identical 33 years later. Medicare, Medicaid, defense spending, all this stuff that we fence that's part of the budget, the interest we pay on the debt. We saw this ship, it had sailed, and we have done nothing to correct the course. As of February, the U.S. debt total is $22 trillion. $22 trillion, not billion, trillion. And we run over $1 trillion deficit per year. We have no rainy day funds, and Admiral Mullen, who is the former Chief of Naval Operations and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, says it's the #1 threat to our country. Not China, not Russia, not North Korea, not Ebola, not nuclear weapons, but our U.S. debt. You guys have to be open-minded about how you solve that problem. And if it was easy, it would be solved. As an admiral, the only things that come to my desk are things that have second and third order effects, and it's all bad news. Easy things get dealt with at the lower level. You guys have to deal with this problem. And I think when you're with your parents and your grandparents, you should give them hell about what they're doing about the problem. Third, lastly, the world of individualism worries me because our problems are collective in nature. Robert Putnam wrote a book many years ago, a book called Bowling Alone, making the case that society was changing from group gatherings, like going to the American Legion and having a beer, or two, from those group gatherings to living more individualistically. The days of going next door to the Learys to borrow a gallon of milk is rare, and now you have everything needed. And everything that we want nowadays, it must be individualized somehow. You've got to have an individual spin on it. Massachusetts is not Massachusetts. It's the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Listen to that word, the Commonwealth. It's not the individual wealth of Massachusetts. We are the United States, not the individual states. The biggest problems of the recent past and the future don't have borders, folks. U.S. debt, poverty, education, healthcare, energy, consumption, and many more require combined efforts of us all to solve them. Our problems are man-made, therefore they may be solved by man. And man can be as big as he wants, No problem of human destiny is beyond human beings. There is a marvelous passage in the last page of Field Marshal Montgomery. Monty was the general that basically ran the British war effort in World War II. In his book, I've adapted it for the benefit of our service for tonight, beyond just military. Monty wrote, there are times in life when people must do hard and hazardous jobs, when success and the globe's fate depend on the courage, determination, and tenacity of all. When those who set duty and service before self give of themselves to see the task committed to them through to its completion, they win the day in the highest honor that mortal man can give. You are the next generation of guardians. Like the guardians of Plato's day, nothing is more important than the work of the guardians, and no reward is greater. On an inscription in Arlington, it is written, not for fame or reward, not lured by ambition or goaded by necessity, but in simple obedience to duty. This is your task. I know all of you will answer the call in protecting our collective freedom. I wish you Godspeed in whatever endeavor you choose, and may you always have fair winds and following seas. Thanks for having me, guys.